Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park Baseball 20 playthrough with the Phillies. It's been a while since I've uploaded an episode. I was out of town over the holidays, so that caused a little bit of a delay. And then another thing that happened, there was a technical glitch with the last recording I made, so I had to scrap that one and start over. And even though the title of this episode is going to be the playoff run for the 2041 season, but honestly, playoff run's over, season's over. So instead of going through the last 20 games like I usually do of the season, this is pretty much going to be a recap and just to let you know how we finished and what we got looking forward to the playoffs, because we did make them. There were some questions. I know the last episode we were mid-season, not playing all that great. Had some questions about whether the offense could hold on, whether really with injuries, whether that pitching staff could hold on and be enough to get us to repeat as the National League East Division winners, let alone make the playoffs. And for whatever reason, the rest of the league or the division kind of stumbled. We went into the last 20 games really with their backs against the wall. We were only a couple games, I think, over New York. We had a much worse schedule going down the stretch than they did, but we were able to hang in there, finish with 91 wins, 4 games above New York in the playoffs, and so we did three-peat. Definitely the best run I've had in this playthrough and in this series. Not sure how we look going into the playoffs, but still dealing with some injuries. I don't know if this team's strong enough to make another World Series run, but we'll see. But we're just going to recap in this episode and get ready for the playoffs, and then, like I usually do, we'll play. I'll play offline until I get to the clinching game, and we'll see if we can, I don't know, hang in there and make it to the World Series again. Looking at the league, though, first of all, just to give you an idea of how everybody finished up, there's some pretty strong teams in the West. 3 teams coming from that National League West to make the playoffs. The Mets lost 6 of 10, you can see down the stretch. Didn't even make the wild card. So disappointing season for them. Cubs finished with the best record in baseball in both major leagues, or National or American League, but they stumbled down the stretch. 3-7 of their last 10, so that might be a good sign, hopeful sign anyway, going into the playoffs. I imagine with us winning that division, Chicago's going to get the winners of the wild card, so we're going to go against the Rockies, who are hot. 9 of 10, won 5 in a row. They overcame a pretty tough Arizona team to make the playoffs, win that division. So that's going to be a really big, tough task for us, I think, to get past them in that opening round. In the American League, it was the Yankees. In the East, Cleveland in the Central, they finished with the best record in the American League. And then we got Kansas City. Looks like they edged out maybe Los Angeles, the Angels, to get the home field advantage in the wild card game, but it's going to be Oakland and the Angels from the West. Seattle had a pretty good year. Baltimore had a good year. They just weren't able to make the wild card. So it's going to be or win the division. I mean, they were tied with looks like they were tied with the Yankees until a playoff game decided that one. Individually, got some home runs again in this league. Granda for New York, the Yankees, led the league with 59 home runs. Pretty good bet that he's going to get the MVP. He led in home runs, RBIs, wins above replacement. Great season for this guy. He's just 27. And then a couple other guys with almost 50 home runs. Myers, a guy who's been around, already won 1 MVP. Having a pretty good career with Seattle. Looks like last 5 years he has been on a great run. And 8.7 wins above replacement. He's got a chance, I think, at the MVP. Although usually it goes to the MVP typically goes to the leader of wins above replacement unless it's low or unless there's a lot of guys bunched up. Here's another guy, Matos, for Kansas City, had a great year. Second in wins above replacement at 9.4. And then pitching-wise, no 20-game winner, but Valdivius, if that's how you say it, kind of came out of nowhere. This is a 3-star pitcher, but won 19 for Seattle. A few guys with 200 strikeouts or more, but who is this Nurowski? If I'm saying that right, with Boston. He led the league in wins above replacement. He was a free agent signing from San Diego. He's got a chance, I think, of winning the Cy Young. And then the National League, not many Phillies showing up here. Definitely no Phillies showing up on the offensive side. Joe Howard had a great year for Arizona, but it looks like he might be hurt going into the playoffs. But led the league with a 357 average, a 10.9 wins above replacement. That I would think that's almost a lock for the MVP for him. Second was Suzuki at Arizona. This guy who's been so tough for us in the playoffs. His big things, he draws so many walks. He's got great eye and discipline. He's got a chance, I think, of getting votes for the award at least. But the big knock on him, he was a free agent internationally from Japan. He's already 32 years old. I don't know how long he'll hold on in this league, but since he's come in, and probably as long as he is able to play, he's been one of the best players in the league. I just think that contract, man, he's got, even though it's low for the kind of player he is, $18 million, that's really a good bargain. I don't see him being productive towards the tail end of his contract. But on the pitching side, we did have one good thing anyway, and Pete Parker. Pete Parker bounced back, had a 2.48 ERA, 6 wins above replacement, over 200 strikeouts again, 14 wins. On this team, that's probably not too bad. You look at his career, not a lot of wins for him, but just shy of 2,000 strikeouts. He's had a good career. He definitely picked it up this year for us when we needed it. And in terms of how we needed it, if you look at our individual stats, offense was, even though they ranked in the top 10 in every category, which is, good to see, I went with a coach who has a home run focus. I forget when I signed the guy, but I'm usually contact and speed. I like guys who get on base, and it's kind of, I'm not too used to playing this way as an offense. This home run total, tied for 6th in the National League, is probably as high as we've been in several seasons in this playthrough, and it's been a struggle sometimes to watch. I mean, I would prefer a team that's on base a lot, that scores runs, scrap, in a scrappy kind of way, stealing bases, hitting runs, those kind of things. I don't know how I'm going to like when we get. I'm sure it's going to be frustrating when we get into the playoffs and I'm actually playing out these games. I don't know if I'm going to like it too much to have to depend almost solely on home runs to get a run. So hopefully it doesn't get that bad. On the pitching side, though, we were really good, and defensively, we were good all up and down the line. Top 5 in several categories, second in few. Even the bullpen came through. They were shaky at the midpoint of the season, but they finished with a 6th in ERA, so that's not too bad. Second on the team in the National League in runs allowed. So our pitching staff came through for us. If you look, since the last episode, which we ended around the All-Star break, we did play really, really good. I mean, 15-9 in July, 15-13 in August. That's when we were kind of struggling. I thought New York might overcome us, but then in September, 16-11, just shy of 600 winning percentage. That was really a good run, because I think of the last 20 games, we were only home for 7 of them, and we were playing against a schedule that was well over 500 in winning percentage. So that I'm pretty happy with the way we were able to pull this one out. But now I'm going to take a look at one thing, and then I'll look at the injury report first, because that's been a struggle. Ken Dion went down. I don't know if I think he was injured in that last episode. I know his ratings aren't as sound as they Could have been, I guess, if he developed a little bit more. But he has still been a solid pitcher in that rotation. Losing him for most of the season, at least half the season anyway, that was pretty tough to overcome. Glad we did. Of course, we've been dealing with this Nate McAfee situation for the last couple seasons. But individually, I think the biggest boost, even though Parker had that great year, I really think this guy that we picked up when Dion went down, I think that may have been the last episode, he saved our season. Down the second half of the season, he was just phenomenal. 7 wins in 15 starts, not dominant maybe, but a 168 ERA, good whip. I mean, his numbers across the board were just great. And unfortunately, he's a free agent at the end of the season, and he's wanting a lot of money, more money than I can give him. And again, we're going to be stuck with, okay, McAfee, hopefully he comes back healthy, and that'll give us the rotation that we need. But I would really like to be able to keep this guy. He was just a really good pitcher for us down the stretch. I think he's wanting, though, well 19 million, and even that with McAfee and Parker and Thompson, if he keeps developing, I'm not going to be able to afford 3 guys on this rotation making 20 million or so a year, so I got to pass on it. In terms of Thompson, a disappointing season in some ways. I mean, he's still a 4-star pitcher right now, potential to go even higher. OSA doesn't like him as much. He didn't finish with as many wins. He only had 14 this year, but his ERA after kind of some rocky start in April, especially September, was really good for him. 5 starts, 3 wins, 175 ERA. So he got his numbers back to about where they were last year. And if you look at this, the 3 guys that I'll mainly be relying on in the playoffs, and Parker, Thompson, Woolard, pitching, I don't think we're going to be too bad off. Barbarossa, he struggled early on, but then still finished with a decent year. 3.14 ERA. I think he was another one who in the second half of the season, well, it was September when he played really well. I don't know if they've come out with the pitchers of the month. I think he may have won it. That's how hot he was down the stretch. But the bullpen has some questions, even though the ERA wasn't that bad. If you look at individuals here, oh man, Morrison 5+ ERA, Mendoza, DeCluet, outside of Hadakayama, who became our closer early on in the season, finished with 31 saves, had a great year, may even have a chance to get reliever of the year in his first season. I have a lot of questions about that bullpen. Mendoza, unfortunately, is done. He's just there's not much value here for him as a pitcher. Just a 1.5-star player right now. OSA likes his individual ratings better than my scout, but I think that's kind of where he's trending. And it's just, he has a decent, slightly above average fastball, an average curveball, and that's it. And I've got him one more year for $11.5 million. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to eat his contract, so that's gonna be a tough one to take going into next season. I'm not even sure I'm going to go with this guy in the playoffs unless I have to, and I'll look at the playoff roster before we end this episode. So I like to go with 12 pitchers in the playoffs, pretty much how I do the regular season. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he may be the odd man out here, honestly. I might be able to go with Dean, who I called up in September. If he's available for the roster, I hope he is, but he may not be. I would like to replace Mendoza on that playoff roster. And then offensively, this is where it really gets disappointing. Warlick, just starting at the bottom here, Warlick did turn it around. He had a terrible first half of the season. He finished hitting over 250, wins above replacement 3.4, but he was not the player he was for me last season. If you look at his splits, he kind of started finally playing well in July, had a good season there. August was, so-so. But he really came through in September, and I'm hoping that that's the player he's going to be in the playoffs because we're going to need it. As far as the rest of the lineup, Ian Norman, I'm still so on the fence with this guy. 5-star player. He was an all-star again this year. I just don't know what he brings offensively that warrants the 5 stars. And that's where really his ratings are coming from, because defensively he's just very average as a catcher. He's got a weak arm, only a just slightly above average catcher position rating. So this, he might be a guy that I'm willing to trade going forward if I can get something for him. He's estimated to make $15 million in arbitration. That's a lot of money. I don't know. Kwarteng, in a pinch, could start. He's signed for another year, another couple years. If I get somebody good for Norman this offseason, it might be the time to move him. Tupper led the team in production in terms of home runs, RBIs, but look at that average, 199. And he's relatively a bargain, I guess, at $3.6 million. But that's pretty tough to have to throw this guy out there every game. I'm going to definitely need an upgrade at first, I think, for next season. I just don't know where I'm going to find that. But hopefully he'll come through in the playoffs for me, at least give me a couple home runs here and there. Koopman, injured. He's probably going to be the second base starter. I had to trade Eubanks away to get that pitcher. But his offense has been weaker than it typically is. I don't expect I'll re-sign him for sure this time. Vega came through, had a better second half of the season as well. I think at one point he was winning several Players of the Week awards in a row. He hit over 300. I mean, that's the trend. September was a great month for us, pitching and offense. That's how we wound up winning the division. Gutierrez had a good comeback season for him. I'm going to hopefully keep him around. He's going to be, though, eligible for arbitration. I think $6 million would be a bargain with his numbers. Pritchard stumbled down the stretch. He was a guy I picked up last offseason in a trade with Arizona. Production-wise, it's not too bad. 84 runs, for instance, 27 home runs, 21 steals. He's doable. I just don't think he's going to be an all-star type starter in this league, which was what I was hoping for when I got him. And then you look at the rest of that outfield. It's not looking too great either. So I don't know what we're going to be able to do here. But let me take a look at the news just to make sure there's nothing I'm overlooking. Ken Dion suffered a setback. So batting title went to Dahl again in Texas. He didn't get 400 this year, but again, another great season. 243 hits. He was able to play out most of the season. I would have loved to have seen his numbers if he'd gotten 40 more games last year. He would have been incredible. He may have challenged for the all-time hit record, which I think Suzuki may have that at 260 something, 261 maybe, if I'm remembering right. But he had a great season. His last 3 years have been really incredible. I just think that he's so injury prone. He's probably going to have a hard time having a good career. But let's look at what we're up against in terms of the playoff roster. Let's see. So I think the big thing is going to be if Steve Bond, is he healthy? He is. So I think Sellers is probably going to be the odd man out here. I'm going to bring Steve Bond back, and he'll get the start. Bond, unfortunately, was injured down the stretch a little bit, but he had really a good season. Hit 283, just 1 point below what he did last year. Wins above replacement was a little bit lower, but he didn't have as many at-bats, I guess. Missed maybe 40 at-bats from last season. But he's really injury-prone. I don't expect this guy to be someone I re-sign. He's a free agent. He's had a good career, 2,300 hits, 1,290 runs scored, 50-plus wins above replacement. But unless I could get him for a very low amount, and I'd be willing to bet he's probably $4+ million, but he's more than likely wanting to be a starter again. I think it's time for me to look at some of my other guys in terms of starting. So, unfortunately, I think I'm limited. I'm really limited in what I can do. That's one of the things that I always kind of miss. I wish I did a better job at it, honestly. I need to start calling some guys up a little bit earlier if I think they're going to have a chance to contribute in the playoffs so that they're eligible for that roster. And unfortunately, I like waiting until September, the call-up date, to call up some of the prospects. And if it's a guy who's able to really help me out, like looking at the active roster, for instance, Chris Benefield, he's not there yet, but man, I'd like to have this guy's bat and speed in the playoffs, and I'm not going to have it now because of when I called him up. Same with Villalobos. He would be good to have defensively and for his speed, but I'm not going to have him. So I'm going to have to go with primarily what I went with. And, I think I was at 13 pitchers, so let me double check that. Yeah. So I think I'm going to move Mendoza off. I just think he's that big of a liability, and at least pick up one more bat with Sellers. He's adequate against I think it's lefties. Well, he's about the same against either one, but he gives you a good defensive replacement if you need him, good speed. So he might be good to have off the bat or off the bench. So that's how it's going to look going into the playoffs. I'm not really too excited about this roster. But let's go ahead and see if I'm right in terms of who we're going to meet first round. And yep, it's going to be Colorado, and they're going to have home field advantage, so that's going to be pretty tough. Looking at the playoff tree, so you made it. So it's Cleveland against the Angels. They've already started their series. Yankees against Oakland, and then Cubs against San Francisco, who must have won their wild card. That was a little bit of a surprise there. They beat Arizona, so it's good to see Arizona out of the playoffs. But against Colorado, they have the advantage, unfortunately. I mean, 6 games we played, Colorado won 4. Looking at the individual performers here, I mean, Tupper had a couple home runs, but you get past, Warlick, a lot of guys here not even hitting 200. Steve Bond, Gutierrez, Barajas, who's already gone, I think. Vega hit 118 with no home runs against Colorado. But that was, hopefully it was early in the season when we played them. I think we're a different team based on that September. And then pitching-wise, Zach Thompson was hammered. That'll be a bad thing if he repeats those kind of numbers. 7 innings, probably 2 starts there, 0-2, 14+ ERA, and you can see what Mendoza did. So he's definitely not going to get a chance. Barbarossa wasn't too bad against him, so I may be wanting to get him an early start maybe against him over Thompson. Maybe go with Barbarossa in that 3rd game, and then hopefully we're going to have a 4th game where Thompson can go. Parker did not pitch against them at all, and neither did the new guy I picked up. So more than likely, this was early in the season when we faced these guys. So I think that is hopefully a good sign because we're a different team than we were early in the season. And then against us, I mean, they had some really good, outstanding performances. Offensively, several guys hitting well above 300. And then pitching-wise, yeah, they did pretty good against us there too. I think if I'm looking at Colorado's line, let me just do it from here. Let me see what Colorado has on their team. Pitching-wise, not too great. It looks like they've only got one guy here with double digits in wins. And I think Jonathan Moser has been one of the better pitchers over the last couple years anyway. He's gone. This guy, he's out. He looks like he may have been a mid-rotation starter for them. Missing some guys in the bullpen. But that's it. They do have this name again, Brandon Kinsler Jr. They traded with Atlanta midseason to pick him up. And he did not have his typical year, but he's going to be dangerous. He always is. I just don't know where they're going to play him. We don't have the DH in this league, and you can see how he's rated defensively. I think it'd be a gamble starting this guy for too many games in that series. Definitely wouldn't want to rely on his defense at third. But outside of him, Trujillo's a good player, 5-star player, good power, good numbers from him. Sean Bedwell, man, a lot of power from him, 40-plus home runs from a shortstop. I mean, they got some 2 to 3-star players in their starting lineup, but I think the nod goes to them offensively, and probably a pretty healthy advantage to us in on the pitching, although they do have what looks like a really good bullpen here. Closer Chris Nichols had a great season, 40 saves, sub-2 ERA. Chad Saunders had a good year. Man, some guys there that look tough. I mean, the bullpen could really, just like in real life Major League Baseball, a bullpen can win a series easily. So that will be where we're going to struggle, because we do not have the bullpen these guys have. Just going back to the team, just to kind of take a look at it. I mean, outside of Hadakiyama and Scott, our bullpen is not up there to that level right now. All right, well, that's going to be how it's going to look, though. What I'll do is I will play offline until I get to that deciding game, and then I'll come back for the next episode. Hopefully we'll still be in there. Hopefully we'll make a go of it. I'd like to advance again because I'm running out of time. I said last episode, when I get to 75 years old in game, which is going to be, 3 more seasons at max, I'm retiring, unless I'm fired. I need to really pull out a shocker, I guess, is about the only way I'm going to win the World Series with this roster, but it's got to happen. We're running up against it, and we're really not going to have a lot of money going into the offseason for free agency because we've got so many good guys coming up for arbitration right now. But that's going to be another conversation later on. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching, liking, subscribing. Hopefully you'll stay with me until I get to that World Series win. But next episode, it'll be a playoff game, and it'll be hopefully a clincher for us. Maybe at home. That would be the best way to have it. If we clinch in 4 games, that'd be great. But until then, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.